Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time, we're tackling a topic that might seem, well, a little bit dry at first glance, but I promise it's way more exciting than you think. Protecting your digital self.
It really is.
And right at the heart of that is understanding this thing called personally identifiable information, or PII.
Yeah, PII, it's a mouthful, but it's important.
So to kick things off, what exactly is PII? Why should our listeners even care about this?
Well, think of it this way. It's any piece of data, any information that can be used to identify you, either directly or indirectly.
Okay.
And what's really fascinating about PII is that it's not just some, abstract concept. It's really the core of your digital identity. In a lot of ways, it's even more valuable than your physical wallet.
Whoa, okay. Now you've got my attention. So what makes it so valuable then? To businesses, I guess, or to criminals?
To both, actually. Every time you do something online, whether it's shopping, browsing social media, or even just using a search engine, you're leaving a trail of data, like digital breadcrumbs.
Right.
And those breadcrumbs, they tell a story. Businesses, they use this data to target advertising, personalize services, and even try to predict your future behavior. But on the flip side,
It can be used against you.
exactly, criminals can exploit it for identity theft, fraud, all sorts of nasty things.
So it's like a digital fingerprint then, but one that's constantly evolving and being tracked.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Now, the source material we're looking at today actually breaks down PII into two main categories:
Yeah.
direct and indirect identifiers.
Okay, let's break those down. Direct identifiers, those seem pretty straightforward, right?
And direct identifiers are the obvious ones. It's your name, your address, your social security number, driver's license, passport info, even your email address and phone number.
Basically anything that has your name on it, anything that could directly link back to you.
Exactly. But then we have these indirect identifiers, and these are where things get a little more interesting.
Okay, so indirect identifiers, what are we talking about here?
These are things that might seem harmless on their own, like your birth date, your ZIP code, your gender, your job title, even your online shopping habits.
Huh, okay. But how can those seemingly random bits of information be valuable to anyone? I mean, what can someone really do with just knowing my birthday and my ZIP code?
Well, imagine a hacker who's trying to break into your accounts. Let's say they start with your email address, which they can probably find pretty easily online. Then, using publicly available info, or maybe data that was leaked in some other breach, they might discover your birth date, or maybe find out what your favorite sports team is.
Oh, so they're using that information to answer security questions or even guess your passwords?
Exactly. It's like solving a puzzle, one piece at a time. They gather these seemingly insignificant bits of information, and they put them together to build a complete profile of you.
Wow, that's kind of creepy when you think about it.
It is. And what's even more concerning is that some companies actually collect and sell this data. They create incredibly detailed profiles of individuals, and those profiles can be used for all sorts of purposes, some legitimate, some not so much.
Okay, that's a bit unsettling, to be honest. I mean, I know targeted advertising is a big part of the online world these days, but it feels different when you realize just how much information is being collected and analyzed behind the scenes.
And the source material really emphasizes that this isn't just some abstract threat. Data breaches are happening all the time.
Oh, yeah, for sure. We hear about the big ones in the news all the time, like that Equifax breach a while back that exposed personal information for millions of people.
Right, that was a huge one. But what's important to remember is that those big breaches are really just the tip of the iceberg. Smaller breaches happen constantly, and those can be just as damaging to individuals. Even if you aren't directly affected by a breach, your data could be sold on the dark web and used for identity theft or other malicious purposes.
Yikes. So it's like anyone who uses the internet is potentially at risk.
It's a scary thought. And what's maybe even scarier is that we often don't even know when our data has been compromised.
Right. It's all happening in the background, and we have no idea.
Now, the source material also highlights a really important distinction, and that's the difference between sensitive and non-sensitive PII.
Okay, I'm curious about that. What's the difference?
Well, sensitive PII, that's the really high-stakes stuff. Things like your social security number, financial information, medical records, even biometric data like fingerprints or face scans. If that kind of information gets compromised, the potential for harm is significant.
Yeah, no kidding. That stuff is like gold to a criminal.
Exactly. Now, non-sensitive PII might seem less risky on the surface. Things like, your ZIP code, your date of birth, those sorts of things.
But you were saying earlier that even those seemingly harmless bits of information can be used against you, right?
Right, remember the puzzle analogy. Even those seemingly insignificant pieces of data can be used to build a complete picture of you. And that's why understanding the different types of PII and the level of risk associated with each is so crucial. It's really the foundation for protecting yourself effectively.
Okay, so we've talked about what PII is, why it's so valuable, and how it can be used for both good and bad. But let's get to the heart of the matter. What can we actually do to protect ourselves? I mean, it feels like we're constantly leaving this trail of digital breadcrumbs wherever we go online, and there's not much we can do about it.
Well, that's where you're wrong. There are definitely things you can do. And that's what we're going to dive into next. The source material we're looking at, it outlines some very specific and actionable steps that anyone can take to protect their PII and safeguard their digital self. It's not about living in fear or disconnecting from the digital world. It's about being informed and taking control.
Okay, I'm all ears. Let's dive into those actionable steps. So before the break, we were talking about how important it is to really understand what PII is and all the different risks if it falls into the wrong
Yeah,
hands.
it's not enough to just know about it.
Right, awareness is only the first step.
Definitely.
So let's talk about the actionable steps that anyone can take to protect themselves based on the source material we've been looking at.
Absolutely. And the very first one, maybe the most fundamental step, is strong passwords.
Oh, passwords, the bane of my existence. I can never remember them all.
And a lot of people make the mistake of using the same simple, easy-to-guess passwords for multiple accounts. That's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, no, I've definitely been guilty of that myself.
I think we all have at some point.
But what can we do about it? What makes a strong password anyway?
Well, the source material really emphasizes long, unique passwords for every single account you have. And honestly, the best way to manage all those passwords is by using a password manager.
Oh, yeah, password managers. Those can be super helpful. I've been meaning to try one out, but how exactly do they work? Is it like a digital vault for all your keys?
That's a perfect analogy. It's like a secure vault where you store all your passwords. You only need to remember one master password to unlock the vault, and then the password manager takes care of the rest. It can even generate those strong, random passwords for you, the kind that are virtually impossible for hackers to crack.
Sounds pretty good, actually. I think I'll finally give one a try.
I highly recommend it. It's one of the simplest yet most effective things you can do to protect your PII.
So, strong passwords, check. What else can we do to really lock things down?
Okay, so next up is something called multi-factor authentication, or MFA for short.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that. It's where you have to enter a code from your phone or email along with your password.
That's right. It might seem like a minor hassle, but it adds this really important extra layer of security. Even if someone somehow manages to steal your password, they still can't get into your account without that second form of verification.
So, even if a hacker gets my password, they're still locked out.
Exactly. Think of it this way. Even if someone steals your house key, they still can't get past the security guard at the door without that extra verification.
I like that analogy. It makes it really clear.
And there are actually different types of MFA, like SMS codes, app-based authenticators, even hardware tokens. Each type has pros and cons, but any form of MFA is way better than relying solely on a password.
So, the takeaway is enable MFA wherever it's offered, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've covered strong passwords and MFA. What's next on our list?
What else can we do? There's got to be more.
There is. And it's all about being super careful about phishing scams. Those are like digital traps designed to trick you into giving up your personal info.
Oh man, phishing scams. Those drive me crazy. It feels like every other email I get is trying to trick me into clicking on something shady.
It can be hard to tell what's legit and what's not these days.
It's like walking through a digital minefield. One wrong click and boom, you're in trouble.
The key is to always be skeptical. Never let your guard down online. The source we're looking at gives some great advice, like always double-checking the sender's address, hovering over links before you click them, and never, ever giving out personal information unless you're 100% certain that the source is legit.
So it's better to err on the side of caution.
Absolutely. Your gut feeling is often your best defense. If something seems a little off, even just a tiny bit, trust your instincts and don't click on it.
Got it. So phishing awareness is crucial.
It's essential in today's digital world.
What else can we do to protect our PII? What's number 4 on our list?
Okay, so this one might seem a little old school, but it's still incredibly important. Shredding sensitive documents.
Shredding. You mean like with a paper shredder in this digital age?
It might seem a little outdated, but it's still crucial. We tend to focus so much on online security that we forget about the physical world.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, we have a shredder at home, but I'll admit sometimes I get lazy and just toss things in the recycling bin.
It's tempting to do that, but it's important to remember that identity theft isn't just an online threat. Criminals can still get your information by going through your trash.
Dumpster diving. Wow, I didn't think people still did that.
It's more common than you might think. That's why shredding any documents that have sensitive PII, like bank statements, medical bills, tax forms, anything with your social security number on it, it's such a simple yet effective way to protect yourself.
You know what? You've convinced me. I'm going to be a lot more careful about shredding from now on.
Good. Okay. So we've covered strong passwords, MFA, phishing awareness, and shredding documents. What's the final step in our PII protection plan?
I am ready for the grand finale. What's the last thing we need to keep in mind?
The fifth and final step is all about being mindful of what you share online. It's about recognizing that every piece of information you post, every photo you share, every comment you make, it all contributes to your digital footprint. And that footprint can be used in ways you might not expect.
Yeah, it's so easy to overshare on social media these days.
It really is.
Especially when you're, caught up in the moment, sharing exciting news or just having fun with friends. But we've got to be careful, right?
It's about finding a balance. You don't have to stop sharing altogether. The source material just reminds us that even seemingly harmless details like your birthday, your location, even your pet's name, can be used by hackers to guess security questions or put together a more complete picture of you.
Wow, I never really thought about it like that. It's crazy how much information we casually reveal online without even thinking about it.
It is. But the question is, how do we know what's safe to share and what's not?
Right, what's the line? It feels like a minefield out there.
Well, there's no one-size-fits-all answer, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It really comes down to being aware of the potential risks and making conscious choices about what you're comfortable sharing publicly.
So, for example, maybe think twice before sharing my home address or phone number on social media.
Exactly. And be cautious about posting photos that reveal your location or other personal details. It's like having a filter in your mind before you hit that share button.
A filter. I like that.
Yeah, just take a moment to consider, could this information be used against me in some way? Would I be comfortable with a complete stranger seeing this?
Thinking about it this way, it makes me realize that protecting our PII isn't just about security, it's about having control. It's about owning our digital identity and making choices about how we want to be seen online.
You hit the nail on the head. It's not about being afraid or disconnecting from the online world. It's about being informed, being in control, and making choices that align with your values and your sense of privacy.
Wow, this whole conversation has been really eye-opening. We've learned so much about what PII is, why it matters, the risks involved, and most importantly, what we can do to protect ourselves.
We've covered those 5 key steps: strong passwords, MFA, phishing awareness, shredding sensitive documents, and limiting online sharing. And they might seem simple, but those steps can make a world of difference.
It's like building a fortress around your digital self, brick by brick, making it harder and harder for anyone to get in.
Exactly. And the best part is, you don't have to be a tech whiz to implement these things. Anyone can do it. It's not about being perfect. It's about being proactive. And by taking those small but significant steps, you can gradually reduce your risk and feel much more confident and secure when you're online.
We've been on quite the journey today exploring this world of PII.
It's amazing how much we leave behind just by living our lives online.
I know, and it's not always easy to wrap your head around.
There's definitely a learning curve.
But I feel like we've really broken it down in a way that hopefully makes it easier for people to understand and, more importantly, to take action.
Yeah, that's the whole point.
Right. At the beginning of this deep dive, I have to admit, I was feeling a bit overwhelmed by all the risks out there.
It's easy to get overwhelmed.
But now I'm feeling more empowered, I guess. Like I can actually make a difference in protecting my information.
That's great to hear. It's not about being paranoid or disconnecting completely. It's just about being informed and making smart choices.
Right, exactly. It's like we've been given this toolbox full of really effective tools. We just need to learn how to use them.
And remember, it's an ongoing process. The digital world is constantly changing, so we need to stay informed, adapt, and just be aware of what's going on.
Yeah, it's not a one-time fix.
Right. It's more like building a muscle. The more you practice good digital hygiene, the stronger your defenses will be. It becomes second nature after a while.
Okay, so as we wrap up this episode, I want to leave our listeners with something to think about.
Sure. What's that?
Think about all those little digital breadcrumbs you're leaving behind every day. With every website you visit, every purchase you make, every social media post you share. Are you really comfortable with what that digital trail says about you?
That's a really good question for everyone to consider. Because ultimately, protecting your PII isn't just about security, it's about control, owning your digital identity, and how you want to be seen in this interconnected world.
Well said. I think that's the perfect note to end on. We hope this deep dive into the world of PII has been informative and empowering for everyone.
It's been a great conversation.
Thanks for joining us. Until next time, stay safe out there in the digital world.